There is a particular kind of quiet that falls over a room when someone says a cruel thing about you out loud, and everyone hears it, and nobody knows where to put their eyes. I have heard a lot of quiet in my life. The quiet of a machine shop at 3 in the morning, the quiet of a hospital hallway, the quiet after my wife stopped breathing. This was a new kind. It was the banquet room at the plant, my retirement dinner. 42 years of my life printed on a little folded card at every place setting. My son-in-law had the microphone. He was 2 glasses in, and he was smiling the way a man smiles when he thinks he is being charming. "Let's be honest," he said. "Somebody's got to carry Dad from here." A few people laughed, the nervous kind. Most did not. I kept my hands folded on the tablecloth. I have big hands, square, scarred. Good for one thing. I looked at them instead of at him. Then, at the head table, a man who had built that company with his own 2 hands set down his glass. He was 74 years old. He stood up slowly, the way we all stand up now. The room turned to look at him. But I am getting ahead of myself. My name is Clarence Renfro, Clay, to anyone who has known me longer than a handshake. I am 67 years old, retired, and a widower. I live in Weldon, a small manufacturing city in western Ohio, in a house on Bellevue Street that I bought in 1988 and paid off a long time ago. I was a millwright, a maintenance foreman the last 20 years of it. That means I fixed the machines that made other things. Pumps, mostly. Big industrial pumps, the kind that move water and slurry and chemicals through pipes as thick as your leg. When one of them failed at 2 in the morning, they called me. For 42 years, they called me. I was good at it. I will say that plainly because it matters later. I could put my hand flat on a running motor and tell you which bearing was going to let go before it let go. I could hear a coupling drift out of alignment from across the floor. That is not a talent. That is 42 years of listening. The town saw a maintenance man in a green pickup truck. A man who drank his coffee black at the diner on Thursdays and kept to himself. That suited me fine. I never once corrected it. My wife was named Adeline, Addie. We were married for 40 years. She kept a hummingbird feeder on the back porch, the red glass kind, and every spring the same little birds would come back like they had our address written down. She died in the summer of 2022. Cancer. It was not quick and it was not gentle, and I will not describe it because she would not want me to. I still fill the feeder. Every few days, that sugar water boiled and cooled the way she taught me. I do not tell anyone I do it. A man is allowed a few things he does not explain. That is the small life the town saw. A quiet old man with a truck and a feeder and a dead wife. What the town never asked, what my own family never once thought to ask, was what a man like that quietly puts away over 42 years. I will get to that. For now, understand that I did not feel like a wealthy man. I felt like a man who had done his job and kept his word. The money was never the point. It was just a thing that happened while I was paying attention to other things. The trouble started about a year before that dinner. It started, the way these things do, as help. My daughter, Paige, is a good woman. I want that on the record before I say anything else. She was 39 that year, tired in the way that women get tired when they are married to a man who spends more than he earns and blames the shortfall on everyone but himself. That man is my son-in-law, Nolan Brister. He runs a custom cabinet shop, or he did. He is the kind of man who is always 2 months from turning the corner. He has been turning that corner for 11 years. After Addie died, Nolan started coming around more. At first I was grateful. A widower gets lonely, and I let myself believe he had softened toward me. Then I noticed the shape of it. It started with the checkbook. "Let me handle the bills for you, Clay," he said one Sunday, "so you don't have to worry about getting confused." I was 66 years old, and I had balanced my own accounts since I was 19. I was not confused. But Paige was standing right there, hopeful, wanting us to get along, so I said we would see. Then it was the workshop. I have a garage out back where I keep my tools, my grinder, my old lathe. Nolan started calling it a fire hazard, started saying it in front of Paige, in front of little Wren, like it was a settled fact. Wren is my granddaughter. She was 6 that year. She still climbed into my lap without being told to, which is the highest compliment a child can pay you. She called the garage Grandpa's shop, and she called the lathe the spinny thing, and she was not afraid of any of it because I taught her not to be. Then it was the corrections. At Sunday dinner, Nolan would correct me. Little things. The year of something. The name of a road. He would look at Paige when he did it, a little glance like they were sharing a secret about the old man across the table. He forgets things, that glance said. You see it too? I did not forget things. I have never forgotten a road in my life. But I watched Paige start to believe it. That was the part that hurt. Not the insult. The way the insult took root in my own daughter. I said nothing. I have found that saying nothing at the right time is a kind of strength people mistake for weakness. That mistake has served me well. I remember one Sunday in particular. We were at their table, the four of us and Wren, and Paige had made a pot roast the way her mother used to. It was good. I told her so. Nolan waited until my mouth was full and then said, to Paige, not to me, "You have to watch him with the stairs now. He took them slow last week. We should really think about a one-level situation." I had taken the stairs slow because I was carrying Wren's bicycle up to fix the chain. I did not say that. I chewed. I swallowed. I said, "The roast is real good, honey." "See?" Nolan said. "He doesn't even remember the stairs." Wren looked up from her plate. "Grandpa carried my bike," she said. "He fixed the chain." The table went quiet for a second. A child had done the arithmetic faster than two grown adults. Nolan laughed it off and changed the subject, and Paige poured more gravy that nobody asked for, and I looked at my granddaughter and thought, at least one person at this table still watches what is actually happening. That is the thing about a lie told slowly. It does not need to be true. It only needs to be repeated at dinner until everyone is too tired to check it. One evening in the fall, Nolan walked the perimeter of my house with his phone out. Taking pictures, measuring, he said, just to have a sense of the numbers. I asked him what numbers. He smiled and said, "No offense, Clay. We just want what's easiest for everyone." Easiest for everyone. I have learned to be suspicious of that phrase. When a man says he wants what is easiest for everyone, he usually means what is easiest for him, and he is hoping you will not do the arithmetic. I watched their small reactions all that year. The way Nolan's eyes moved to the good furniture, the way he asked casually whether the house was all paid off, the way Paige stopped meeting my eyes. Small reactions tell the truth. The mouth lies. The eyes do the accounting. Now. I could have gone the whole year like that, telling myself I was imagining it, the way you do when the alternative is admitting your family sees you as a problem to be solved. I might have. I am as good at fooling myself as the next man. But one morning in February, I heard the plan out loud. Paige had left a casserole dish at my house, the good one, and she called and asked if I could run it back over. I said I would. I drove over around 10. Their front door was open behind the storm door, the way people leave it when the house gets stuffy, and I came up the walk with the dish in my hands, and I heard them in the kitchen before they heard me. I stopped on the step. I am not proud of listening. I am not ashamed of it either. Some things a man is owed the truth about. Nolan was talking, fast, the way he talks when he is selling. It solves everything, he was saying. We move him into the basement, fix it up nice, he won't complain. We list the Bellevue house in the spring market. That's got to be 200 and change, free and clear. His retirement, whatever little bit of it that goes into the shop, we call it an investment. It's better than it's sitting in some bank. Paige said something I could not hear. Her voice was low, worried. Because I already talked to a guy about the power of attorney, Nolan said. We get it signed while he's still with it, before his memory really goes. Then it's clean. We're not stealing anything, Paige. We're managing it. He's a burden either way. At least this way the burden pays for itself. Burden. I stood on that step and I felt the word go through me like cold water down a collar. I did not go in. I set the casserole dish down on the step, quietly, the way you set down a wrench you have decided not to throw. I walked back to my truck. I drove home. I sat in my driveway for a while and I looked at the hummingbird feeder, empty for the winter, and I thought about my wife. Addie used to say, Clay, you let people show you who they are. You just take too long to believe them. She was right. She was usually right. That was the morning I stopped giving my son-in-law the benefit of the doubt. Here is what I did not do. I did not go back and confront him. I did not raise my voice. I did not call my daughter a fool, though a part of me wanted to. I have watched anger ruin men my whole life. Anger is a machine that runs backward. It burns the operator first. Instead, I went to see Hirsch Dorn. Hirsch worked the maintenance floor with me for 30 years. He is 70 now, retired 5 years ahead of me, and he keeps a garage that is cleaner than most people's kitchens. I found him there, doing nothing in particular, which is what the two of us do best. I told him, all of it, the checkbook, the workshop, the measuring, the casserole dish on the step. Hirsch listened the way he always listened, which is to say he let me finish. Then he wiped his hands on a rag and said, "You want my advice or you want me to agree with you?" "Advice. Don't burn it down, Clay," he said. "Just stop holding it up." I have thought about that sentence a great deal since. Just stop holding it up. All that year I had been the beam under my daughter's household, the quiet, load-bearing wall nobody looks at until it is gone. Hirsch was telling me I did not have to knock the house down. I just had to stop being the thing that let them treat me that way. "There's a difference between a trap and a door," he said. "A trap you build to catch somebody. A door you just stop standing in front of. Let him walk through it himself." I told him I did not want to hurt Paige. "Then don't," he said. "Hurt the plan. Not the girl. She'll figure out which is which." That afternoon I made an appointment with a lawyer. Her name is Constance Yardley. She had done Addie's estate work back when we set things up, and I trusted her the way you trust someone who explains things instead of impressing you. I sat in her office and I laid it out. She let me finish too. Good people do that. Then she started gently to take the fear out of it. "Clay," she said, "I want you to understand something, because I think you have been carrying a worry you do not need to carry. Nobody can take that house from you with a power of attorney. That house is not yours to lose that way. It is in the Adeline Renfro Living Trust. You and Addie put it there in 2015. You are the sole trustee. A power of attorney over you does not reach a trust you control. It is a locked box, and you are the only one holding the key." I knew that somewhere, but hearing it out loud, in her flat, certain voice, was like feeling a floor under my feet in the dark. "And your retirement," she said. "The Ashbourne stock. Tell me about that." I told her what I knew, that the company had an employee stock ownership plan, an ESOP, going back to the early 90s, that every year for decades shares had gone into my account, that I had never sold a single one, because I never needed to, because Addie and I lived under our means the whole way, that there was some deferred pay on top of it, and that Sewell, the founder, had told me quietly the company was being bought out, and the buyer was cashing out the employee shares. Constance Yardley looked at me for a moment. "Have you seen the number?" she asked. "Not lately," I said. "You should get it from the benefits office," she said, "before the dinner. I think it will change how you walk into that room." She leaned forward. "Here is my advice, and it is the same advice I give everyone who comes in here shaking. Do not confront him. Do not sign anything. Let the paper do the work. And when the moment comes, when he asks for it out loud in front of people, be in the room. Be calm. Let the truth stand up on its own. It does not need you to shout for it." I had spent 42 years being patient with machines that broke at the worst possible hour. I could be patient a little longer with a man. So I prepared, not a trap. Paper. I got the trust binder out of the fireproof box in my closet and I read it front to back, the way I used to read a maintenance manual, slowly, making sure I understood every line. I understood it. Addie's name was on the first page in her own handwriting. Seeing that steadied me more than any lawyer could. I went to the benefits office at the plant. A young woman named Kessa pulled up my account and turned the monitor toward me and pointed at a figure with the eraser end of a pencil. "I will not print the number. It is not the point, and Addie would not want me showing off. I will only say this." I sat there and I thought about every night call, every flooded floor, every holiday I missed because a line went down. I thought about a maintenance man who supposedly retires with nothing. And I understood for the first time really that the thing my son-in-law had called a burden was on paper the most solvent person he had ever sat across a table from. I did not feel proud. I felt something closer to grief, because it meant they had never once looked at me and wondered. They had already decided. While I was in the benefits office, Kessa asked me a question that stayed with me. She asked if I wanted to update my beneficiary. She said a lot of the older fellows never did, and it caused a mess later. I looked at the form. Adeline's name was still on it, from 2015. I sat there a while. I did not change it that day. I know how that sounds. But a man does not erase his wife's name off a page just because a young woman with a pencil suggests it is tidy. I told Kessa I would think about it. I did think about it. In the end, I set up the account for Ren instead, later with Constance, and left Addie where she was until I could do it slow and on purpose. Some paperwork you do fast, some you owe more than that. I gathered the rest of it, the ESOP statements, the deferred compensation summary, the acquisition letter from Saul's office, and one more folder, a plain one, that I had kept for years without ever meaning to use it. It was the record of every quiet thing I had paid for the Bristers. The 2 times I covered their mortgage when the shop had a bad quarter. The transmission on Paige's car, Ren's dental work. Nolan never knew about most of it. I had asked Paige not to tell him, to spare his pride. I am a fool that way. I protect the pride of men who would not spend a nickel protecting mine. I did not gather it to use as a weapon. I gathered it so I would remember, when the softness came over me later, the softness that always comes over me, that I had already been more than generous, so that I would not mistake a boundary for cruelty, and I took myself out of the way. I told Nolan pleasantly that I would keep handling my own bills. Thank you, I had gotten the hang of it again. I signed nothing. When he pushed a folder across the table one Sunday, just some papers to make things easier, I said I would like Constance to look at anything before I signed it, and I watched his face do a small, ugly thing before he smiled and put the folder away. He never brought it back out. That told me everything. The one thing I did not plan was Sewell. Sol Ashbourne is 74. He started Ashbourne Pump and Machine in a rented garage the year I was in high school, and he hired me in 1984 when I was 26 and hungry. He is the closest thing to a brother I have left. When he heard the company was throwing me a retirement dinner, he called me himself. Clay, he said, I want to give the toast, the main one. Let an old man say it right. 40 years you don't hand that to some regional manager with a script. I told him he did not have to. I know I don't have to, he said. I want to. There's a thing I've wanted to say in front of people for 30 years and never had the occasion. Give me the occasion. I did not know what he meant. I told him he could say whatever he liked. I should have asked. Sewell had carried that flood story for 30 years, and I had never let him tell it, because I do not like being talked about, and he had honored that even though it cost him. A man will hold his gratitude in his mouth for decades if you ask him to. It is a heavy thing to hold. I only understood later that when Sol asked for the occasion, he was asking me to finally let him set it down. One more thing, Sol said before he hung up. That son-in-law of yours, he came to see me last month. That stopped me. He did what? Asked me, real friendly, what your pension situation looked like. Said he was helping you plan. I told him you were all set, and I changed the subject. Sol was quiet a moment. I didn't like the smell of it, Clay. Figured you should know a man who's helping you doesn't usually case the building first. I thanked him. I did not tell him the rest. But I hung up the phone, knowing the reveal, whatever shape it took, was going to be witnessed by the one man in the county nobody could talk over. Meanwhile, Nolan booked a contractor to start on the basement. Before the dinner, before he had a single thing signed. That is the kind of man he is. So sure of the ending that he started spending it early. I did not build a trap. I want to be clear about that, because I have turned this over many times. I just stopped standing in front of the door the way Hirsch said. I let him walk toward it on his own 2 feet. The dinner was on a Friday in March in the banquet room at the plant. They had strung up some lights. There was a cake with a little frosting pump on it, which made me laugh, because whoever made it had gotten the impeller backward, and only I would ever know. Paige came. Wren came, in a dress, so proud of her grandpa. Nolan came in a jacket that cost more than the cake. There were speeches. A younger foreman I had trained said kind things and got choked up, which surprised us both. Kessa from Benefits read a card the office had all signed. It was warm. It was more than a maintenance man expects. And then Nolan stood up and took the microphone off its stand, just to say a word about family, and the whole thing turned. You already heard the worst of it. Somebody's got to carry Dad from here. He did not stop there. He was rolling. He talked about the next chapter, about how family steps up when the old folks slow down, about how he and Paige were opening their home. He made it sound like charity. He made me sound like a coat somebody had to take in for the winter. The nervous laughter died out about halfway through. The room did the arithmetic before he did. You could feel it. 42 years of people who had worked beside me, watching a man in a nice jacket call me a weight. I kept my hands folded. I looked at the little frosting pump with the backward impeller. I thought, hold on, Addie. Hold on. This is almost over. Nolan raised his glass. To Clay, he said, we'll take good care of you. And Sewell Ashbourne set down his glass and stood up. He did not rush. He is not a man who rushes. He buttoned the middle button of his jacket, the way men of his generation do, and he waited until the room was his, which took about 2 seconds, because a room like that had been waiting for him to speak all night. Nolan, Sewell said. Is it Nolan? Sit down a minute, son. Let me tell these people something they may not know. Nolan sat. He had to. There is a weight to a founder that a son-in-law does not have. In the spring of 1994, Sewell said, this plant flooded. The creek came over in the night and 4 feet of water sat on the pump floor, and the whole plant was dead. And we had one contract that year that was keeping the lights on. One. And if we missed the delivery, we lost it. And if we lost it, I lay off 90 people and I sell the building. The room was very still now. This was not the toast anybody expected. I got the call at 2 in the morning, Sewell said, and by the time I got here, there was already one truck in the lot. His truck. He nodded at me. Clay Renfro was standing in 4 feet of floodwater with a drop light in his teeth, pulling motors he had no business pulling in the dark, because he had figured out that if we got the 2 big pumps running by Monday, we could route around the dead ones and make the delivery. Nobody told him to come. Nobody could have paid him to do what he did. He did not come out of that water for 3 days. We made the delivery Monday morning. We kept the contract. We kept the 90 jobs. We kept the building we are standing in right now. He let that sit. So when I hear a young man stand up, Sewell said, and his voice did not rise, it got quieter, which is worse, and call this man a burden, a weight, somebody to be carried. He shook his head slowly. You did not inherit a burden, son, Sewell said. You married into the reason I got to retire with a roof over my head. You married into the man who kept this whole town's paychecks coming one bad spring. You have been sitting at his table for 11 years, and you never once asked him a single question about who he is. Then Sewell said the plain thing, the thing that landed like a dropped wrench on a concrete floor. And I will tell you all something else, because it is going to be public record next month anyway, and I would rather Clay hear it said with respect than read it on a statement. When the sale closes, Clay Renfro's employee ownership in this company, 42 years of it, that this man never sold a share of, and the pay he deferred so his people could get raises in the lean years, comes to a number larger than anyone in this room is going to earn in a lifetime. He is not moving into anybody's basement. He never needed to. He let you all think what you wanted to think because that is the kind of man he is. Nobody moved. The only sound was the ice settling in the pitchers. I looked at Nolan's face. I want to tell you I felt triumphant. I did not. His face had gone the color of old putty, and his hands were flat on the tablecloth the way mine had been. And for the first time in 11 years, he could not find a single word. I looked at Paige. She had her hand over her mouth. Her eyes were already wet, and she was looking at me, only at me, and I saw the whole year rearrange itself behind her eyes. The corrections, the measuring. The words she had let take root. I watched her understand what she had let herself believe. Wren, 6 years old, tugged Soul's sleeve and asked in the loud whisper of a child, "Is Grandpa the hero?" And the room, God bless it, laughed. The good kind of laugh this time, the kind that lets a held breath out. Saul looked down at her. "Yes, honey," he said. "He is." I stood up then, because a man has to say something when a room is looking at him like that. I did not say much. I have never been good at saying much. "I appreciate that, Sewell," I said. "You always did talk too long." More laughter, warm. "I did my job," I said. "That's all. A man does his job and keeps his word and comes home to his wife. I lost the coming home part a few years back. So I just kept doing the job. That's the whole story." I looked at Paige and I softened because she is my girl. "I'm not moving into anybody's basement," I said. "But my door's open. It always was. Some of you are welcome to walk through it. Come sit at my table. Nobody has to carry me. I can still carry a little myself." I sat down. That was the reveal. No shouting, no security, no dramatic ending. Just a room going quiet, and the truth standing up on its own, exactly like Constance said it would. The collapse came in the parking lot. Nolan caught me at my truck. Paige had taken Wren to the car. He was breathing hard, and his jacket was open, and all the smoothness had gone out of him. "Clay," he said. "Clay, listen. I didn't. That's not. You have to understand the position I'm in. The shop. I've got a partner, Deke. He's leaning on me. I've got notes coming due. I was drowning. I panicked. 4 feet of floodwater. That is what I thought of." He said drowning to a man who had actually stood in it. "I know you were drowning," I said. "I've been drowning. Difference is I never tried to pull my family under to keep my own head up." He did not have an answer for that. "Come see me Monday," I said. "At Constance Yardley's office, 10 o'clock. Bring your books, your real books, not the ones you show Paige." He came. Give him that much. On Monday at 10 o'clock, he sat in that office with his shoulders around his ears, and Constance laid it out for him with no cruelty and no mercy either, just fact. The house was in a trust he could never have touched. The power of attorney he had lined up would have been worth exactly nothing against it. The retirement he wanted to feed into his shop was, and would always have been, mine alone. There had never been anything to take. He had spent a year scheming to steal a locked box, and the key had been in my pocket the entire time. When she finished, Nolan put his face in his hands. Then he told the truth finally. The shop was $110,000 underwater. Deke Palgrave, his partner, was threatening to walk and take the equipment. He had a second mortgage Paige did not fully know about. He had been, in his word, terrified. Here is where a lot of men would have brought the hammer down. I had the recording of nothing because I never recorded him. But I had Sewell, and 90 witnesses, and a lawyer, and every advantage. Constance had told me quietly before he arrived that if I wanted to report the attempted power of attorney scheme, there were people I could call. I did not call them. Justice and revenge borrow the same tools. I have come to believe that. The deed, the recording, the lawyer, the truth said out loud in a room. The only difference is that justice sets the tools down when the work is finished. Revenge keeps swinging after the nail is in. The nail was in. Nolan was finished as a schemer. Everyone he had tried to fool now knew exactly what he was. That was enough consequence. Ruining him further would only have ruined Paige and Wren along with him, and they had done nothing. So I drew the line where it belonged. "I'm not giving you a dime for the shop," I said. "Not now, not ever. That door is closed and it stays closed. You will not manage my money. You will not touch that house. If you ever mention a power of attorney again, I will make the call I did not make today." He nodded. He kept nodding. "But," I said, and I watched him look up, "because there is always a but with me, that is my whole trouble. You are Wren's father, and Paige loves you or loved you, and that is her business to sort out, not mine. So here is what I will do. I will put money in a locked account for Wren's education. Hers, not yours. You cannot touch it, and neither can I. And I will pay for you to sit down with a credit counselor and an honest bookkeeper one time so you can see the size of the hole you dug. What you do after that is up to you. You want to climb out honest, I'll respect it. You want to keep turning that same corner, I'll respect the fence I put up. He asked me why. After everything, why would I do even that? I thought about it. Because 40 years ago, I said, I stood in floodwater for people who never thanked me, and it did not make me poor. Turns out it's the only thing that ever made me rich. I'm too old to learn a different way now. I closed the door on the scheme. I left it unlocked for the man. Whether he ever walks through it honestly is up to him. That was never my job to decide. Spring turned into summer. Paige came to the house alone, a week after the dinner. She sat on the porch in Addie's chair, which she did not know was Addie's chair, and I did not tell her, because she needed a place to sit and cry, and that was as good as any. She did not defend herself. That is the thing I will always love her for. She did not say, but Nolan told me, or, you have to understand. She just said, Dad, I let him make me stupid about you. I let him. I'm the one who should have asked you a question. I'm your daughter, and I never asked. You asked plenty when your mother was alive, I said. You got out of the habit. Habits come back. She laughed, wet and awful. How are you not angry at me? I was, I said, for about a day. Then I remembered you're the best thing your mother and I ever made. Hard to stay angry at your best work. She stayed for supper. First time in a long time she stayed without a reason. She left Nolan where things stood, which is to say she stopped covering for him and started telling the truth. And their marriage became an honest thing for the first time. And honest things are hard, and I do not know yet how it ends. That is theirs to write. He took a salaried job at a bigger millwork outfit, a real job with a real paycheck, and closed the shop, and Deke Palgrave took his equipment and went away. Nolan started sending me a little money. Not for the shop. On account. A note came with the first one. It said in his handwriting, for the mortgage you covered in 2019. I found the record. I'm sorry it took me this long to look. I keep that note in the plain folder with all the others. It is the only line in that folder written by him. Wren comes to the shop now on Saturdays. I taught her to press her small hand flat into a fresh patch of concrete I poured by the workbench, right next to a patch from 1985 with a handprint already in it, Addie's, from a spring she helped me pour the floor. 2 handprints now, one old, one new. Wren likes that they match. She asked me one Saturday why the man at the party had told everyone I was a hero. She had been chewing on it for weeks, the way children chew on a thing. He was being kind, I said. Heroes are usually just people who did the boring right thing when it was hard and nobody was watching. You did the boring right thing, she said. It was not a question. I tried to, I said, most days. Is that why we have money now? I set down the file I was holding. Children ask the questions adults are too polite to ask, and they deserve a straight answer. We always had enough, honey, I said. The party just told everybody else. Having enough and letting people think you don't, that is a way of finding out who they really are. Your grandma taught me that. She was smarter than me by a mile. Wren thought about it. Then she pressed her hand into the wet concrete again, a second print, deeper, and said, now there's 3. And there was. 2 of hers, one of her grandmother's, 30-some years apart, in the same floor. I did not smooth it out. Some things you leave exactly as they land. The hummingbird feeder is full. The little birds came back this spring, right on time, like they had our address written down. I sit on the porch in the evening and I watch them and I fill Addie's feeder, and I do not explain it to anyone. The house is quiet again. I want to be careful with that word. Not empty. Quiet. There is a difference, and it took me most of a year and one bad dinner to learn it. Empty is when nobody wants your table. Quiet is when the right people do, and they are just not there tonight, and you know they are coming Sunday. They come Sunday now. That is the whole reward. Not the number on the statement, the Sunday table. If you have ever been treated as a weight by the very people you spent your life carrying, if you have ever sat quietly at your own table while someone decided out loud that you were finished, if you have ever been counted out by the people you would have stood in floodwater for, then I hope you will hear this from an old man who learned it late. Your worth was never theirs to measure. They only ever saw the outside of you, the truck and the coffee and the quiet, And they mistook the quiet for nothing. But quiet is not nothing. Quiet is a man holding more than he ever asked anyone to notice. You do not have to burn anything down to be respected. You just have to stop holding up the people who use your shoulders as a floor. Let the truth stand up on its own. It does not need you to shout. It never did. If this story meant something to you tonight, share it with someone who may need to hear it. Someone who has felt invisible at their own family's table. And tell me in the comments about the person in your life who was quietly holding more than anyone knew. I would like to hear about them. Thanks for spending this time with me. And remember, it is never too late to be seen for who you truly are. But it starts the day you decide you no longer need their permission to know your own worth.